Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to rebuild the Detroit Pistons. Hey, this is episode 13 of the Royal City Hoops podcast. I'm Bill, and that could have also been an intro to the $6 million man. Yes, we can rebuild him. We're going to discuss how to rebuild the Detroit Pistons. Growing up, they were my favorite team. I was a big Bad Boys fan until the Raptors came along, and then being in Canada, I got to be a fan of the Canadian team. That's all it's going to be. Homer all the way. Want you to know that I took very special care today on this episode. It's very important to me. I showered, I shaved, cut my hair, brushed my teeth, put on deodorant. I even trimmed my eyebrows. That's how important this is to me. This is like date night around here for me. Don't tell my wife I said that. So we're going to talk about the Detroit Pistons and how to get them to be a winning franchise. So let's recap what we've already talked about. We've talked about why your team sucks in a video, and the Pistons are a prime example of why they suck. You know, that result. We've talked about drafting for dummies, that you can find value in the second round, in non-lottery picks, in the lottery, how to go about that. And we've talked about the death of the big man in the Andre Drummond trade, which ties right into the Pistons because they made that trade presumably going into the future thinking, okay, this is not a good place to be with a big man who is not built for the modern NBA, and that we would end up paying $28 million because, let's be honest, in today's economic climate, is any NBA player turning down a player option right now? Probably not. So be prepared for a lot of those player options to be picked up going into the season. Now, who do you want to be? So first thing is first, you want to be a winner, sure. But you have to figure out who do you want to be? What team is your role model? What is the process to being good? And I think in an earlier episode I talked about the Clippers and the Nets being flagship franchises was foreign to me because they were terrible for me growing up. But they've really done a good job of being examples of how to build a team. And you're building a team. You're building an organization. So if you can't draft the greatest players, like if you don't have a transformational player in your organization already, you have to build the pieces around a prospective player to attract them. Look at what the Nets did. They built a team and then attracted Kyrie. They built a culture. Sorry, they didn't just build a team. They built a culture that Kyrie and Kevin Durant wanted to be a part of. And so you have to think of that as the model, the template you're trying to build. Now, how did they do that? They took reclamation projects. We're going to talk about Spencer Dinwiddie and Joe Harris and D'Angelo Russell, all reclamation products. What did they have? They had minutes. They took on assets, they took on cash and draft picks, which is valuable, and then they drafted well. They had some mid-first round picks that really turned out to be good players, and we're going to talk about Karis LeVert and Jared Allen as being those two players. It was building that foundation that helped them attract elite players, building a culture, building the fact that, hey, we can win games and be a good team without a great player, and if you're a great player and you're discerning and you want to find a good team, hey, we're a good place to be. So to me, if I'm the Pistons, I'm looking at that as my role model. Now, you have to stop and take stock of what you have. It's not just about where you're going. What do you have right now that can help you get there? What are your assets and your liabilities? Now, the two liabilities we're going to talk about is one, it's Detroit. It's not a destination. You know, they're not a place that you sit there and go, man, I would love to live in Detroit. And I'm not saying that because it's a terrible place. I mean, I've been to Cleveland. It's a pretty good place by comparison. And there's a reason we're not using Cleveland as our example because that's just too far to go. Now, the Pistons have a lot of things working for them. Sure, Detroit's not an exotic location, and they don't have the best history lately of making good draft picks or running a good organization. I mean, the Stan Van Gundy period, not the greatest. Tom Gore took over as the majority owner in 2015, but was part of the ownership group in 2011. Now, the good thing about Tom Gore is he's made a clear statement that he wants to win. He does not want to tank. However, it seems like he's changed his understanding of how to win long-term in the NBA, and having Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond on your payroll for nearly $70 million or $60 million isn't really a good move. So they've definitely changed their focus on how to build their franchise. Another plus that they have is they have Dwayne Casey and his coaching staff, and they were pivotal in building the culture of the Toronto Raptors, who followed that model of build a good team. Now, the Raptors also cannot attract elite free agents. But they did a good job of drafting. They built a team. They built an organization. They built a culture. And Dwayne Casey was a big part of that. He's an NBA lifer. He had stints in Minnesota, Detroit now. He understands how to build a winning team in the NBA. Okay, maybe he's not the most creative in-game offensive strategist, but he can take you from 20 wins to 40, 45 wins as a coach. He knows how to do that. So they're pretty set there. They've done a good job with the coach. They have all their own draft picks, which is good. Their salary cap situation is phenomenal. They have $68 million on the books for 2021. So my guess is they're going to be a dumping ground for bad contracts, cash, and draft picks. Now, the key is to not take the bad long-term ones. You know, there actually are not a lot of bad contracts in the NBA like there used to be, because they have to be on shorter deals and teams are cognizant of salary cap and the value of it and how to build an organization. There are some bad. There aren't as many as there used to be. I mean, the Knicks, you would think the Knicks, by signing a team full of power forwards and overpaying some of them, are in really bad shape. But their salary cap situation in 2021 is pretty good. They've only got $85 million on the books. And Bobby Portis is a team option that year for $15 million. That's pretty good. So teams are very, very aware of how to manage their cap. Atlanta's only got $58 million on the books and a ton of young talent. So these teams with a lot of cap space, they can position themselves to take on some bad contracts, but you need to compensate them for taking them. I think we heard this talked a lot about with the Kevin Love contract and the trade deadline and all that you would need to incentivize someone to trade for Kevin Love. So of the contracts I looked at, and there were a whole bunch, there aren't a ton that are really bad. I mean, you have Philadelphia's really got to find a way to get off either Al Horford or Tobias Harris to build their team, because they have no depth. They're not going anywhere with those guys, and I think they'd be foolish to unload either Embiid or Simmons. Now, clearly we know if you're going to build a title team, it's going to be around a wing player. It's not going to be around a post player. So keep that in mind. Death of the big man, trading bigs. You want wings. You want an elite wing. So you're going to build your team to have shooters, to have defense, and to have positional depth. You can do all of that without a star. So let's have a look here at some bad contracts out there. Aaron Gordon's a player. It's not a bad contract, but I think Orlando wants to move on, and so does he. He and Jonathan Isaac are kind of redundant. I like Isaac better. Orlando probably wants to give him the minutes, and Gordon, I think, has run his course on that roster. He'll be an attractive piece, and people will make plays for that. Tobias Harris and Al Horford, I don't know how Philly's going to get off of either of those, because every other team knows they have to get rid of them. So there isn't going to be a lot out there, but something will have to happen. Andrew Wiggins is an interesting one. He can get you points. He's young. He doesn't suck. But Golden State probably has some reasoning. They're going to play it out. I mean, I think he's got 4 years left on his deal. Cleveland's got a couple of bad ones. Larry Nance's contract is over $10 million for a guy who's marginal. But Cleveland's not going to want to incentivize you to take him or Kevin Love. They want to keep their picks, even though they don't know how to use them, by drafting 2 point guards 1 year after the other. Why are you doing that to both of them? You know, why would you draft 2 year after year in the lottery? That's not not a good way to build a team. They didn't think that one through. Eric Gordon is a contract that he's a good player. Health has been the main concern with him. So I don't know if Houston doesn't have any draft picks. They can't incentivize you to take them. He's got to be part of another deal. But they don't have a lot of players under contract, and they got a lot of money on the books that we talked about in our podcast, Blowing Up the Rockets. I think they have $110 million in 4 players. That's not looking good. Now, the Spurs have a few that are marginal. DeMar DeRozan could be moved. LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar Carroll, but the Spurs seem like a smart organization. You got to give away draft picks to get people to take them. DeMar's contract expires. He's got a player option. He's going to take that. So I think the Spurs probably, more than anything, they would take picks but not give any away. So if that means keeping DeRozan until his deal expires and holding on to their picks, they're going to do that. Utah's got Mike Conley on the books. They've had a little discord there. Again, he has a player option going into next year for $34 million. He's picking that up. So he's got 1 year left on his deal. I don't see why Utah would unload him, given that they probably want to give this roster another shot at it. Rudy Gobert's another expiring deal, but you don't overpay for a center. We're going to be repeating that a lot. Sacramento and Buddy Hield. I'm interested in that one. That one's interesting because I like Buddy Hield. I don't like him as much as he likes himself. He could be a piece because I think I like Bogdan Bogdanovic better, but he's a restricted free agent. And if I'm Sacramento, I would probably want to hold on to him. Whether they can or not, who knows? But it is Sacramento. They're another team that's bad for a reason. They got a lot of young players, not a lot of experience. So they would have to incentivize me to take Buddy Hield. Maybe. I might take him just... Send me a second round pick and Buddy Hield, and I'll just absorb his contract and send you some garbage, and we're good. Drew Holiday is a player who's owed a lot of money. He's a little injury prone, but I think New Orleans is trying to build culture, and he fits right into that. They've got and again, they're kind of like Utah. They haven't really had a chance to see this roster play out, so I think they're not going to make any moves. They might build, but they would be a buyer, not a seller. Let's use that term, buyer, seller. The Bulls suck. And they need to turn things around. Zach LaVine's contract, you could pay me to take Zach LaVine's contract. You could send me a pick for that. I'll take it. But these teams are crappy and they wouldn't be smart unless they have extra first round picks. I don't think they're giving them away because I think they know how valuable they are. We're moving in a direction where teams are probably going to think a little more NFL-like in that when your best players are on their rookie deals, that's a chance for you to use your extra money for role players and elite players to help you get over the hump because they're locked into a certain salary. You don't have to give them a max deal. You know, you look at what some NFL teams do when their quarterbacks are young. Like, well, let's take the Seattle Seahawks, for example. They won the Super Bowl when they had Russell Wilson on a really cheap deal, and they were able to build the rest of their roster with their cap space. So I think teams will start to think a lot more like that. You know, Dallas will, for sure. Luka's locked in. They're going to spend that money elsewhere, and then when they got to pay Luka, you know, they'll pay him, no doubt. We all know about my man crush for Luka Doncic. Thad Young's another contract that the Bulls could unload. I could see that happening. The Pacers, Miles Turner, he's one. I think he's going to end up moving, but he's a useful piece. You're not really going to get incentivized. You need to take on somebody else's garbage. It may just be players and cash. Draft picks, teams know how valuable they are. So the Pistons have they're in good position, but it's a slow burn to being good. I like Blake Griffin as a player. He's matured. His game has matured so much from just being a dunker. Now his body started to betray him. But as a passer, as a playmaker, as a ball handler, how he's evolved as a shooter is unreal. I mean, people are going to talk about Ben Simmons shooting. Blake Griffin's a prime example of how your shooting can evolve. and improve over the course of your career. So eventually Ben Simmons will figure it out. Now, the Pistons have some bodies. They have 9 bodies on their roster. They have Derrick Rose on an expiring deal coming up. Tony Snell has a player option, which he's for sure going to pick up. Blake Griffin has 2 years in a player option. He's going to pick that up. Thon Maker has his next year as a qualifying offer, so if they really wanted to, they could not extend it. They've got Luke Kennard still on his rookie deal and Sekou Doumbouya on his rookie deal. I'm pretty high on Sekou Doumbouya as a player who will help your team. Big motor, skilled, has a feel for the game. I wouldn't say skilled, but you can see his feel for the game will help him develop his skills. Rangy, exactly what you want. Reminds me a little bit of Pascal Siakam, but more as a wing than a front court player. Not quite the motor, but just a lighter version of Pascal Siakam. But I still like him a lot. He's going to be on top of my list on a lot of my fantasy drafts just as a value pick. So the Pistons have enough going for them that they can rebuild this. They have to be patient. They can't be like the Knicks were this year that delayed their rebuild by 2 years by signing all those power forwards. Stay the course. Collect draft picks. Take on crappy contracts. Don't give out big contracts to players not worth it. It's so much about value. I'll give you a prime example of value. Dorian Finney-Smith for the Mavs. Plays big minutes, makes a big impact. 3-and-D guy, more D than 3. Doesn't play outside his role. He's making $4 million this year. $4 million. Think about it. So if you choose to accept it, we have just rebuilt the Pistons. Well, we've started the rebuild. They're not rebuilt yet. That's all I got for today. Like if you like. Comment if you have something to say. Subscribe at your own risk. And see you on the next Groundhog Days. Oh, before I go, I'm probably not going to be doing one of these every 2 days. I'm going to try to turn at least one out a week, maybe 2. I'll have to figure out what day it's going to be. But yeah, that's going to be the plan. 1 to 2 a week, will be how I'm going to turn this out. I got to work on the blog that goes with this thing, RoyalCityHoops.com. It's atrocious right now. So, sorry for the delay. Now I'm out.